Close your eyes. The past is about to speak. When you think of the Trans-Siberian Railway, you might imagine a scene from a classic film. Perhaps you picture yourself as a mysterious figure in a private compartment, a glass of iced vodka sweating in your hand, watching snow-dusted forests glide past your window. You see opulent dining cars with white tablecloths, hushed conversations with foreign diplomats, and a sense of romantic, old-world espionage unfolding between Moscow and the Pacific. But for the vast majority of people who have ever made this journey, the reality was, and is, something else entirely. It's a world of shared benches, the constant smell of boiled sausage and damp wool, and the relentless, grinding noise of steel on steel. Frankly, in the third-class carriage where our journey takes place, you probably wouldn't last a single day. So go ahead and get comfortable. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your part of the world. It's always nice to see how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your journey begins here, under the soaring, vaulted ceilings of Yaroslavsky Station in Moscow. The air is heavy, a thick cocktail of diesel fumes, cheap tobacco, and something vaguely like boiled cabbage. It coats the back of your throat. You clutch a single paper ticket in your hand, its edges already soft with sweat. This ticket is less a golden invitation to adventure and more a flimsy, one-way pass to an endurance test. It cost you very little in terms of money, a fact that will become painfully, intimately clear over the next 7 days. You stand for a moment, dwarfed by the grandeur of the building, a style you might describe as aggressively historic. It's meant to inspire awe, to speak of empire and reach, but all you feel is the ache in your shoulder from the weight of your single, overstuffed bag and a rising sense of smallness. There are no crisp, digital departure boards here to soothe your modern anxieties. Instead, you face a vast, complicated wall of schedules, a dizzying grid of destinations and track numbers that seems to actively resist being understood. You find your train number after a long search, your finger tracing a grimy line across the glass. The feeling is not one of triumph, but of weary confirmation. This is real. This is happening. You join the flow of people, a slow-moving river of humanity shuffling toward the platforms. You are swept along in a current of soldiers on leave, families with impossibly large bundles tied with string, students with thin backpacks, and old women with stern, unreadable faces. Each person is an island, yet you are all bound by the same gravitational pull, drawn east by forces of family, work, or necessity. The sound is a constant, low roar, a mixture of echoing announcements in a language you don't understand, the rumble of suitcases with broken wheels, and 1,000 overlapping, indistinct conversations. It's a soundscape that has no silence in it, no pockets of peace. You find yourself missing the simple ability to put in earbuds and retreat into a private world. Here, the world is determined to be fully, unavoidably present. As you move through the station, you pass kiosks selling provisions for the journey. The pastries under the glass look tired, as if they've already completed a cross-country trip of their own. There are pyramids of instant noodles, shrink-wrapped sausages of a suspicious sheen, and bottles of water that cost more than you feel they should. You buy a few things, adding their weight to your already burdensome bag. It's a strange kind of shopping, not for pleasure but for survival. This is not a hunt for a satisfying meal. It's a calculated hedge against future hunger and regret. A common myth about this railway is that it is one singular line, a steel spine laid across the continent. But that's a romantic oversimplification. In truth, the Trans-Siberian is a network of arteries, and you are about to be injected into its main, pulsing vessel, the longest railway line in the world. It's a fact you know, but the reality of it, over 9,000 kilometers, 8 time zones, 7 days, is an abstract concept your mind can't yet grasp. It feels like trying to imagine the size of the ocean while standing on the shore. As you wait near the designated track, you observe the other passengers. A young man carefully tunes a small, portable radio, a faint thread of tinny music briefly cutting through the station's din before being swallowed again. A mother distracts her 2 small children by making shadow puppets against a pillar, their soft giggles a tiny, fragile sound in the vast, echoing space. Historians still debate the true cost of this railway's construction, not just in the colossal sums of money, but in the staggering human toll it took on the tens of thousands of laborers who laid these very tracks through frozen swampland and solid rock. It's a sobering thought that the foundation of your journey is built upon the silent, forgotten exhaustion of so many others. You also think about one of the odder facts you once read, that some of the very first, more luxurious trains to run this route at the turn of the 20th century contained rolling chapels, complete with priests and icons, and even small libraries for the first-class passengers. The contrast between that image and your current reality is almost comical. There will be no library car for you, no quiet place for spiritual reflection. Your communion will be with 100 other people in a single, stuffy carriage, and the only scripture will be the unspoken rules of shared survival. Finally, the gate to the platform is opened, and the crowd surges forward, not with a frantic push, but with a practiced, dense momentum. The illusion of the grand station falls away completely as you step out into the open air of the platform. The train is waiting. It is not the gleaming, majestic express of your imagination. It is a long, formidable beast of green-painted steel, looking weathered and immensely powerful. It seems less like a vehicle and more like a moving piece of the industrial landscape. The air here is sharp with the metallic smell of the tracks and the powerful scent of coal smoke, even though the engine is now electric. The smell seems baked into the gravel, a permanent ghost of the railway's past. You feel a strange mix of dread and undeniable excitement. The chaos of the station is the first filter, the first test. And despite the noise, the smells, and the heavy weight on your shoulder, you have made it through. You are here, ticket in hand, ready for the next stage of the ordeal. You walk alongside the immense train, searching for your carriage number. The small metal plates are bolted near the doors, their numbers faded and streaked with grime. You count them as you pass. 21, 22. The sheer length of the train is disorienting. It seems to stretch into the gray distance, a metal serpent with no discernible tail. Finally, you find your designated car. A small crowd is clustered around the entrance, a bottleneck of bodies and bags, all trying to navigate the too steep, narrow metal steps that lead inside. There's no orderly queue, just a shared, unspoken understanding that everyone will eventually get on. It's a slow, cumbersome process of one person heaving their luggage aboard, then themselves, before the next person can begin. When it's your turn, you grab the cold, smooth metal handrail and haul yourself and your heavy bag up into the train. You are immediately hit by a wall of air. It's warm, thick, and already saturated with the smells of human life. It's a complex bouquet. The foundational note is of old sweat, followed by the sharp, savory scent of instant chicken broth, the damp wool smell of overcoats that have seen too many winters, and a faint, sharp undertone of a cleaning fluid that seems to have given up long ago. You pause for a moment, your senses overwhelmed, allowing your eyes to adjust to the dim, yellowish light of the carriage. You are standing in a long, narrow corridor that runs down one side of the car. On the other side are open-faced compartments, each containing 4 bunks. Along the corridor wall are 2 more bunks, running lengthwise. It's a perfectly efficient, brutally logical arrangement designed to maximize human capacity and eliminate any notion of personal space. The floor is a worn, dark linoleum, and everything that could be metal is painted a faded, institutional green. It feels less like a passenger train and more like a moving barracks. Your ticket says berth number 41. You begin the slow, awkward shuffle down the narrow aisle, your bag bumping against the walls and occasionally, regrettably, other people. You murmur apologies that are neither heard nor expected. Everyone is in the same predicament. You are an obstacle, just as they are obstacles to you. It's the first lesson of the carriage. You are part of a larger organism, and your individual comfort is secondary to the functioning of the whole. You pass compartment after compartment, each a little diorama of departure. A grandmother is unwrapping a parcel of food for a small boy. 2 soldiers are already deep in a game of cards on a lower bunk. A young woman stares out the window, her face betraying nothing. You finally find your spot, number 41. It's an upper bunk running lengthwise along the corridor wall. You look up at it. It's a simple, hard shelf, perhaps 2.5 feet wide, covered in a thin, dark red vinyl that is cracked in several places. Above it is a higher shelf for luggage, already partially occupied by a lumpy, mysterious bundle tied with rope. Below you, a stout man with a magnificent gray mustache has already claimed the lower bunk. He looks up at you, gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod, and then returns to methodically peeling a hard-boiled egg. There is no welcome, just a quiet acknowledgement of your mutual existence for the next 168 hours. Now comes the first great challenge of your journey: luggage. Your large bag, which seemed so reasonable back in your quiet apartment, now feels like a comically oversized burden. There is no dedicated luggage car, and your personal space is precisely the dimensions of your bunk. The space beneath the lower bunk is a storage box, a feature of this class of carriage. The man below you has already filled it completely. Your only option is the high shelf above your head. You look from your bag to the shelf, doing the mental geometry. It doesn't seem possible. This is where the unspoken rules begin to reveal themselves. You are expected to handle it. Asking for help would be an admission of weakness, a sign that you are not prepared for this. So you begin the awkward, straining process of lifting your bag. You try to get a foothold on the lower bunk, earning a slight grunt from its occupant, and you push and shove. It's a clumsy, sweaty affair. A small crowd is clustered around the entrance, a bottleneck of bodies and bags, all trying to navigate the too steep, narrow metal steps that lead inside. There's no orderly queue, just a shared, unspoken understanding that everyone will eventually get on. It's a slow, cumbersome process of one person heaving their luggage aboard, then themselves, before the next person can begin. When it's your turn, you grab the cold, smooth metal handrail and haul yourself and your heavy bag up into the train. You are immediately hit by a wall of air. It's warm, thick, and already saturated with the smells of human life. It's a complex bouquet. The foundational note is of old sweat, followed by the sharp, savory scent of instant chicken broth, the damp wool smell of overcoats that have seen too many winters, and a faint, sharp undertone of a cleaning fluid that seems to have given up long ago. You pause for a moment, your senses overwhelmed, allowing your eyes to adjust to the dim, yellowish light of the carriage. You are standing in a long, narrow corridor that runs down one side of the car. On the other side are open-faced compartments, each containing 4 bunks. Along the corridor wall are 2 more bunks, running lengthwise. It's a perfectly efficient, brutally logical arrangement designed to maximize human capacity and eliminate any notion of personal space. The floor is a worn, dark linoleum, and everything that could be metal is painted a faded, institutional green. It feels less like a passenger train and more like a moving barracks. Your ticket says berth number 41. You begin the slow, awkward shuffle down the narrow aisle, your bag bumping against the walls and occasionally, regrettably, other people. You murmur apologies that are neither heard nor expected. Everyone is in the same predicament. You are an obstacle, just as they are obstacles to you. It's the first lesson of the carriage. You are part of a larger organism, and your individual comfort is secondary to the functioning of the whole. You pass compartment after compartment, each a little diorama of departure. A grandmother is unwrapping a parcel of food for a small boy. 2 soldiers are already deep in a game of cards on a lower bunk. A young woman stares out the window, her face betraying nothing. You finally find your spot, number 41. It's an upper bunk running lengthwise along the corridor wall. You look up at it. It's a simple, hard shelf, perhaps 2.5 feet wide, covered in a thin, dark red vinyl that is cracked in several places. Above it is a higher shelf for luggage, already partially occupied by a lumpy, mysterious bundle tied with rope. Below you, a stout man with a magnificent gray mustache has already claimed the lower bunk. He looks up at you, gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod, and then returns to methodically peeling a hard-boiled egg. There is no welcome, just a quiet acknowledgement of your mutual existence for the next 168 hours. Now comes the first great challenge of your journey: luggage. Your large bag, which seemed so reasonable back in your quiet apartment, now feels like a comically oversized burden. There is no dedicated luggage car, and your personal space is precisely the dimensions of your bunk. The space beneath the lower bunk is a storage box, a feature of this class of carriage. The man below you has already filled it completely. Your only option is the high shelf above your head. You look from your bag to the shelf, doing the mental geometry. It doesn't seem possible. This is where the unspoken rules begin to reveal themselves. You are expected to handle it. Asking for help would be an admission of weakness, a sign that you are not prepared for this. So you begin the awkward, straining process of lifting your bag. You try to get a foothold on the lower bunk, earning a slight grunt from its occupant, and you push and shove. It's a clumsy, sweaty affair. The entire carriage lurches forward with a force that presses you back against the wall. A few unsecured items rattle and fall. A bottle rolls down the aisle, its journey stopped by an outstretched foot. This is not the gentle, gliding start of a modern high-speed train. This is the raw, brute force of a colossal machine waking up, the slack between the carriages being violently taken up. Another jolt follows, then another, and then a slow, groaning, grinding motion begins. The world outside your window starts to slide sideways, almost imperceptibly at first, then with gathering speed. The concrete platform gives way to a spiderweb of tracks, then to the drab, industrial outskirts of Moscow. You are moving. The initial relief of being underway quickly gives way to the dawning reality of your situation. You are now sealed inside this metal tube, a participant in a week-long experiment in motion and confinement. The rhythm of the train begins to assert itself. It is not a gentle, rocking lullaby. It is a complex, multi-layered beat. There is the fundamental, bass-heavy thud-thud, thud-thud of the wheels on the tracks, a constant, hypnotic pulse that you can feel in your bones, in your teeth. Layered over this is a symphony of creaks, groans, and rattles from the carriage itself, as every joint and panel protests the strain of movement. It's a soundscape that will become the soundtrack to your life, a noise so pervasive that its eventual absence will feel more jarring than its presence. As dusk begins to settle outside, a new set of rituals begins inside. The dim overhead lights flicker on, casting a sallow, yellow glow over everything. The shades on the windows are pulled down, one by one, creating a sense of a shared, self-contained world hurtling through the darkness. The carriage attendant, a formidable-looking woman in a severe blue uniform, makes her first official pass. She moves down the aisle with an air of absolute authority, collecting tickets and handing out sealed plastic bags containing bedding. You watch her interact with the other passengers. She is a figure of immense power in this small universe, a combination of landlord, customs officer, and matriarch. She doesn't need to raise her voice. A sharp look is enough to quell a noisy card game or get a piece of luggage properly stowed. Historians might argue about the precise moment the railway became the backbone of the Russian state. But on this train, it's clear that power flows directly from the carriage attendant. You receive your bedding pack. It contains 2 coarse, grayish-white cotton sheets, a pillowcase, and a thin brownish blanket that smells faintly of dust. The pillow itself is a dense, lumpy rectangle of what feels like compressed cotton, and the mattress is a thin, rolled-up pad of the same. Making your bed on the narrow upper bunk is another physical challenge, a wrestling match in a confined space. You wrangle the sheets into place, stuff the uncooperative pillow into its case, and unroll the thin blanket. It is not a bed that promises comfort, only a marginal improvement over the bare vinyl. There is no modern luxury here, no memory foam or high thread count cotton. This is bedding as a purely functional object, designed for durability and little else. You think with a pang of longing for your own bed at home, a feeling you suspect will become a frequent companion. The first night on the train is a unique form of torment. You are trying to find sleep in a public space, surrounded by the noises of strangers. The man below you begins to snore, a deep, resonant sound that seems to vibrate up through your bunk. From the compartment across the aisle, you can hear the soft murmur of a late-night conversation. Someone, somewhere further down the car, has a baby who has decided that now is the time to cry. A thin, piercing wail that cuts through the mechanical drone of the train. You try to close your eyes to retreat into yourself, but your body is acutely aware of its surroundings. The rhythmic jostling of the train is relentless. Just as you feel yourself starting to drift off, the train will hit a rough patch of track or sway violently around a bend, snapping you back to full, jarring consciousness. One of the more surprising facts about early train travel was the genuine fear doctors had about the effects of high speeds on the human body. Some believed that traveling at more than 30 miles per hour could cause the brain to detach from the skull, or the body to simply melt. Lying here, being shaken and vibrated by this powerful machine, you can almost understand their paranoia. It feels like your body is being subjected to a low-grade, continuous assault. You try different positions, curling on your side, lying flat on your back, but nothing brings real comfort. Your world is reduced to the 6 feet of your bunk, the rough texture of the blanket, and the constant, overwhelming noise. You can't simply get up and walk around to stretch your legs. There is nowhere to go, and you would only disturb others. The aisle is dark and treacherous. This is the moment the romantic illusion of the journey truly dies, replaced by a grim understanding of what you've signed up for. This is not an adventure, it is a siege. You are not a traveler, you are cargo. Yet all around you, the veterans of this journey have found a way to adapt. The snoring man, the quiet talkers, even the mother with the crying baby, they are all part of this ecosystem. They have submitted to the rhythm of the train. The human capacity for endurance is on full display. They have learned to sleep through the noise, to find rest amidst the chaos. For them, this is normal. For you, it is a new and deeply unsettling reality. You stare up at the dark, curved ceiling, feeling the vibration in your skull, and wonder how you will possibly survive 6 more nights of this. The first night is a rite of passage, a breaking-in period, and as the train thunders on through the vast, dark Russian night, you have never felt so tired or so profoundly, hopelessly awake. The first morning light filters weakly through the grimy window at the end of the corridor, not as a gentle awakening, but as a slow, gray change in the quality of the darkness. You haven't truly slept, but have instead drifted in and out of a shallow, restless state that feels more like a prolonged fever dream than actual rest. The train's rhythm has seeped into your consciousness, and you wake up with its relentless beat still pulsing in your head. You carefully, stiffly, sit up on your bunk, taking care not to bump your head on the luggage shelf above. The air in the carriage is even more potent than it was last night, stale, warm, and thick with the unmistakable scent of 100 sleeping bodies. Slowly, the carriage begins to stir. It is a gradual, organic process, like a large animal waking from hibernation. People begin to rustle in their bunks, soft coughs and groans punctuating the train's mechanical symphony. The first sign of the day's routine beginning is the slow, deliberate procession of people towards the back of the car, each clutching a small toiletry bag and a towel. This is your first introduction to another fundamental aspect of third-class life, the morning ablutions. You decide to wait, correctly assuming that the initial rush will be overwhelming. From your elevated perch, you become a student of carriage society, observing the unspoken rules that govern this confined world. Luggage etiquette is paramount. The space under the lower bunks is considered the private domain of those passengers. Using it without permission would be a grave social error. The small, fold-down table between the lower bunks in each compartment is a shared space, a neutral zone for meals and card games. But when it's not in use, it defaults to the control of the lower bunk occupants. As an upper bunker, you are a guest in their space when you descend. Your domain is strictly vertical. The most important figure, as you observed yesterday, is the carriage attendant, or the provodnitsa. You now see her in her morning role. She moves through the car with brisk efficiency, waking up those who need to disembark at the next small, forgotten station. She is the train's clock, its enforcer, and its caretaker. You learn that she is responsible for keeping the hot water urn full, for sweeping the floor, a task she performs with a small, handmade broom, and for maintaining a semblance of order. Historians could write entire papers on the unique matriarchal power structure she represents. In this world, she is the law. Annoying her is the cardinal sin of train travel, a mistake you vow not to make. You see a young man try to argue with her about opening a window, a strict taboo, as it disrupts the delicate temperature balance of the carriage, and he is silenced with a look so withering it could curdle milk. Lesson learned. Another unspoken rule revolves around food. While you will eventually eat at the shared tables, the initial preparation of your meal is a private ritual. People guard their personal stashes of food with a quiet jealousy. Sharing is common, but it is always initiated, never requested. To ask for food from a stranger would be a profound breach of etiquette. It is a system built on subtle offers and polite refusals, a delicate dance of community and self-preservation. You watch the man with the mustache below you carefully assemble his breakfast: black bread, a slice of hard sausage, and a steaming mug of tea. It is a simple, efficient meal, and he consumes it with a focused deliberation that suggests this is a long-practiced routine. Eventually, you decide it's time to face the bathroom. You gather your toothbrush and a small sliver of soap and begin the perilous climb down from your bunk. Your muscles are stiff, and the floor feels surprisingly unstable after a night of being rocked back and forth. You join the short, silent queue at the end of the car. The door to the toilet is a thin, flimsy plastic that offers little in the way of privacy. The sound of the toilet flushing is a shocking, explosive roar of compressed air, a sound that periodically rips through the carriage's otherwise steady hum. There is no modern plumbing to compare this to. It is a system of brutal industrial efficiency. When it's your turn, you step inside. The room is tiny, a cramped metal box. The floor is wet, and the air is thick with the smell of chemical disinfectant failing to mask more organic odors. The toilet is a simple steel bowl. The sink is a small basin where water trickles out of a push-button tap for precisely 5 seconds at a time. Brushing your teeth becomes a frantic, one-handed operation. Push the button, wet the brush, push the button, rinse, push the button, spit. There is a small, smeared mirror on the wall, and in it you catch a glimpse of your own face, pale, tired, with dark circles under your eyes. You look like a survivor, not a tourist. One of the shocking realities of this kind of travel is the sheer lack of personal space and privacy. In the West, we are accustomed to our own rooms, our own bathrooms. The idea of performing your morning routine in such a public, unsanitary fashion is deeply unsettling. And yet, you see how people have adapted. They have a system. They are quick, efficient, and respectful of the person waiting next. It's another lesson in human resilience. People can get used to almost anything. One odd historical fact you recall is that in the early days of rail, some passengers would bring their own chamber pots to avoid the public facilities, a practice that, while logical, seems impossibly cumbersome. Looking at the cramped space around you, you can't imagine where one would even store such an item. You return to your bunk, feeling slightly more human, and decide to make your own breakfast. You pull out a packet of instant oatmeal and your trusty mug. You make your way to the front of the carriage, where the Titan, the hot water urn, stands like a chrome idol. It's a large, cylindrical machine with a simple spigot. The water that comes out is scalding hot, steam billowing from your mug. You retreat to your area, sit on the edge of the lower bunk. The man with the mustache has gone for a walk, and eat your bland, watery oatmeal. It is not delicious, but it is warm and filling. It is fuel. You are learning to see food not as a source of pleasure, but of simple, necessary energy. Around you, the carriage has fully come to life. The day's card games have begun, conversations are flowing, and the world inside this metal tube is now a self-sufficient, functioning society, governed by a complex web of unwritten laws that you are only just beginning to understand. With the initial rituals of the morning complete, your attention now turns to the crucial matter of sustenance. You quickly realize that your life on this train will be dictated by two primary forces: the relentless, forward motion of the wheels and the periodic, gnawing pangs of hunger. The grand dining car you might have seen in movies is a distant dream, an amenity reserved for first-class passengers on more tourist-focused routes. Here, in the unglamorous world of third class, your dining experience is a far more do-it-yourself affair, centered entirely around the miraculous, ever-present hot water urn at the end of the carriage. This chrome-plated Titan is the heart of the community, the source of all warmth and comfort. Its constant supply of scalding water is the one true luxury afforded to you, and the entire culinary landscape of the carriage is built around it. The staple food, you quickly learn, is instant noodles. You see them everywhere in their bright, crinkly packaging. Passengers have them stacked in their luggage, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice. The preparation is a simple, comforting ritual. You tear open the packet, empty the contents into your personal mug, add the mysterious powder from the flavor sachet, and then make the pilgrimage to the urn. As the hot water hits the dry noodles, they slowly unfurl, and the scent of artificial chicken or beef flavoring fills the air. It's a smell that will become as familiar and constant as the scent of diesel and dust. Your own small stash of food, which seemed so adequate when you packed it, now looks pitifully small. You have your oatmeal, a few protein bars, and one packet of instant soup. You are already feeling a sense of ration anxiety, calculating how to make your supplies last for 6 more days. You watch your fellow passengers with a new, intense interest, studying their provisions. They are the true professionals. They have brought with them an astonishing variety of non-perishable goods. You see slabs of smoked bacon, long, hard sausages, bags of black bread that look dense enough to stop a door, jars of pickled vegetables, and tins of fish. They have this down to a science. A common misconception is that people on long journeys like this must starve or eat poorly. The truth is more complex. They eat a diet that is monotonous, certainly, but also calorie-dense and perfectly engineered for preservation. They are not gourmands, they are survivalists. Tea is the other pillar of the Trans-Siberian diet. Almost everyone has a bag of tea bags, and the act of making and drinking tea is the primary social activity on the train. The man below you, the one with the mustache whose name you still don't know, seems to drink at least a dozen cups a day. Each time, he performs the ritual with the same solemn care. He warms his glass mug with a splash of hot water, swirls it, discards it, then adds the tea bag and fills it to the brim. He lets it steep until it is a dark, almost black color, then drinks it slowly, staring out at the passing landscape. It is not just a drink. It is a way to mark time, a small, civilized moment in the midst of the constant, grinding chaos. You decide to make your own cup of tea. Holding the warm mug in your hands, you feel a small sense of participation, of belonging. You are now part of this tea-drinking society. As you sip the bland, generic black tea, you notice a family in the compartment across the aisle beginning their midday meal. They spread a small cloth over the fold-down table, creating a miniature, makeshift dining room. The mother unwraps a whole roasted chicken from a thick layer of greaseproof paper. The sight and smell of it are almost shocking in this environment of dried and processed foods. It feels like an act of incredible luxury, of defiance against the constraints of the journey. They share it out amongst themselves, along with boiled potatoes and pickles from a jar. They eat with gusto, their enjoyment a small island of domestic pleasure. This act of sharing is central to the carriage's food culture. While you would never ask for food, offers are frequently made. The man with the mustache, seeing you eyeing his sausage, wordlessly cuts off a thick slice with a small, sharp penknife and offers it to you on the tip of the blade. You accept with a grateful nod. The sausage is salty, fatty, and intensely flavorful. It is the most delicious thing you have tasted in days. This small act of generosity is a powerful social glue. Historians who study the lives of ordinary people often point to these informal economies of sharing as a key survival strategy in harsh conditions. It's not about charity. It's about building a network of mutual obligation. Today he shares his sausage with you. Tomorrow you might share your biscuits with him. You also learn about the strange, almost mythical food items that are particular to this journey. One of them is a dried, salted fish that comes in a cellophane packet. A couple of the soldiers are eating it, peeling off strips of the leathery flesh and chewing on it like jerky. The smell is pungent, an intense, fishy aroma that temporarily overpowers everything else. It's a food you can't imagine ever trying, yet for them, it is a normal, savory snack. You recall reading a quirky fact that in some parts of Siberia, a traditional delicacy is frozen, raw fish, sliced thinly and eaten while still frozen. The thought makes you shiver, despite the warmth of the carriage. Your diet is becoming a cycle of blandness and monotony, punctuated by these small, surprising moments of flavor. Breakfast is oatmeal. Lunch is instant soup. Dinner is another cup of tea and a protein bar. You are constantly a little bit hungry, a little bit unsatisfied. You find yourself fantasizing about food with a startling intensity. You dream of fresh salads, of crispy French fries, of a simple, perfect apple. The lack of fresh fruit and vegetables is palpable. You feel a kind of nutritional melancholy setting in, a weariness that comes from a diet of brown and beige. There's no Yelp to check for the five-star sausage, no app to order a fresh meal to be delivered at the next stop. You are reliant on what you have and on the kindness of strangers. This experience strips eating down to its most basic function, separating it from the world of choice and pleasure that you are so used to. It is another way the train grinds you down, remaking you into someone more basic, more elemental, someone who can find a moment of pure, unadulterated joy in a single slice of greasy, salted meat. The train doesn't just move through space, it also moves through a different kind of time. The hours blur into a continuous stream, marked only by the shifting light outside and the rhythm of your own hunger. But this long, hypnotic trance is violently punctuated by the station stops. These are not the brief, efficient pauses of a commuter line. They are chaotic, frantic bursts of activity, lasting anywhere from 5 minutes to a full half hour. They are your only connection to the outside world, your only chance to escape the sealed tube of the carriage. The approach to a station is always preceded by a flurry of activity. The carriage attendant becomes a whirlwind of motion, striding down the aisle and announcing the name of the upcoming town. Her voice is sharp, insistent. It's a signal for those who are disembarking to gather their belongings, and for everyone else, it's a call to arms. A palpable sense of anticipation fills the carriage. People start putting on their shoes, grabbing their coats, and checking their pockets for small bills. This is not a casual interlude. It is a mission. As the train slows, its grinding protest growing louder, you press your face to the corridor window, trying to get your first glimpse of the town. Most of these places are not destinations. They are simply points on a line. The names are unfamiliar, a string of syllables that mean nothing to you. You see small, weathered wooden houses, plumes of smoke rising from chimneys, and then the long, concrete expanse of the station platform. The moment the train comes to a complete halt, with one final, shuddering sigh, the doors are thrown open and the race begins. You join the surge of passengers pouring out of the carriage and down the steep metal steps. The first thing that hits you is the air. After the thick, recycled atmosphere of the train, the outside air feels shockingly cold and clean, even when it's tinged with coal smoke. It feels like taking your first breath after being underwater for too long. You inhale deeply, filling your lungs. The second thing that hits you is the ground. The solid, unmoving stability of the concrete platform is almost dizzying. For a moment, you feel a phantom swaying, your body so accustomed to the train's motion that stillness feels unnatural. The platform is a world of its own, a temporary, bustling marketplace that springs into existence the moment a train arrives. A line of local women, mostly grandmothers with deeply lined faces and thick scarves wrapped around their heads, stands ready. They are the unofficial caterers of the Trans-Siberian Railway. In front of them, on small, rickety folding tables, or sometimes just on cardboard boxes, they display their wares. This is your chance to supplement the monotonous diet of the carriage. But there are no labels, no prices, no ingredients lists. You are operating on pure instinct and observation. You see steaming, boiled potatoes, glistening with butter and sprinkled with fresh dill. There are meat-filled pastries of a mysterious origin, their golden brown crusts hinting at savory delights within. You see jars of homemade pickles, strings of smoked fish, and sometimes, if you're lucky, a bucket of fresh berries. It's a far cry from the sanitized, shrink-wrapped world of a modern supermarket. This is food at its most elemental and direct. One of the more interesting facts about the railway's history is how these informal platform economies developed. They were never part of the official plan, but they grew organically out of the needs of the passengers and the entrepreneurial spirit of the locals living along the tracks. It's a perfect example of human ingenuity creating a system where none existed. You decide to be brave. You approach one of the women and point at a large, plump pastry. You hold out a few small bills, and she takes the correct amount with a swift, practiced hand. There is no conversation, just a simple transaction. The pastry is warm in your hands, its heat seeping through the thin napkin she wrapped it in. You take a bite. It's filled with a savory mixture of minced meat and onions, and it is indescribably delicious. The taste of real, freshly cooked food is a revelation. It's a moment of pure, unadulterated pleasure that makes you feel almost human again. But these stops are fraught with a constant, low-grade anxiety. The train is a jealous beast, and it will not wait for you. The carriage attendant stands like a sentinel at the door, her eyes sweeping the platform. There is no final boarding call, no friendly reminder. The only signal that it's time to leave is a subtle shift in her posture, a sense of urgency that communicates itself through the crowd. You learn to read these signs. You also learn to never stray too far from your carriage. The thought of being left behind in a tiny, unknown Siberian town, with your passport and all your belongings still on the train, is a primal fear. You see a young man sprinting down the platform, his face a mask of panic, just as the train begins to groan into motion. He makes a desperate leap for the handrail, and his fellow passengers haul him aboard. It is a cautionary tale you take to heart. These frantic interludes are also your only chance to stretch your legs. You walk the length of the platform, your muscles grateful for the movement after hours of confinement. You see the train from a new perspective, its immense scale even more impressive from the outside. You see the wheels, enormous and solid, and the complex undercarriage of pipes and machinery. It looks less like a vehicle and more like a piece of heavy industry that has been set in motion. Scholars of Russian culture sometimes talk about the concept of stationness, the idea that these railway platforms are unique, liminal spaces, neither here nor there, belonging to both the settled world of the town and the moving world of the train. It is a space of fleeting encounters and desperate commerce. You feel it in the air. The 5, 10, or 30 minutes you have on this platform are a lifetime. It's enough time to have a feast, to breathe, to feel the sun or the cold on your skin, and to remember that there is a whole world outside the windows of your carriage. Then the moment is over. The crowd surges back towards the doors, and you are swept along with it. You climb the steps back into the familiar, stuffy warmth of the carriage. You find your bunk, the savory taste of the meat pastry still lingering in your mouth. The train gives its characteristic lurch, and the platform begins to slide away. The women with their food tables shrink into the distance, and soon they are gone. The brief, chaotic freedom is over. You are once again sealed in your moving world, but you are changed. You have a full stomach, and you have the memory of solid ground beneath your feet. It's a small victory, but on this journey, small victories are the only kind there are. Several days into the journey, a new and formidable enemy begins to make its presence felt: the grime. It is a slow, creeping invasion, an accumulation of dust, dirt, and human presence that begins to coat every surface of the carriage. This is not the clean, sterile environment of a modern, sanitized world. This is a place where you are in a constant, losing battle against the elemental forces of entropy. The romance of the rails gives way to the stark reality of communal hygiene in a confined space. The floor is the first to surrender. The carriage attendant's diligent sweeping with her small broom can only do so much against the constant influx of dirt from the station platforms and the shedding of 100 bodies. A thin, grayish film covers the linoleum, becoming a sticky patina in the areas of highest traffic. You become conscious of what you are walking through, and the simple act of putting your bare feet on the floor becomes unthinkable. You, like everyone else, have a designated pair of carriage shoes, slippers, sandals, or old sneakers that you wear at all times inside. Taking them off is a sign that you are retiring to your bunk, your small, personal island in this sea of shared filth. The windows, once your portal to the vast Siberian landscape, are now obscured by a translucent layer of grime on the outside, and a film of condensation and fingerprints on the inside. Looking out requires finding a clean patch to press your face against, and even then the view is softened and hazed, as if seen through a cataract. The world becomes a little less sharp, a little more remote. The surfaces you touch regularly, the handrails, the door handles, the fold-down tables, develop a certain tackiness, a residue of countless hands. You find yourself unconsciously wiping your own hands on your trousers after touching anything. There's no hand sanitizer here, no convenient wet wipes. This is a world before the obsession with antibacterial everything. You simply learn to live with a level of uncleanliness that would have horrified you just a few days ago. But the true heart of the train's hygiene problem, the epicenter of all your anxieties, is the toilet. You thought your first encounter with it was bad. Now, after several days of use by dozens of people, it has descended into a new circle of squalor. The wet floor is no longer just water. The smell of disinfectant has long since lost the war. The small metal bin for paper overflows with a horrifying constancy. Using it requires a strategic, almost military precision. You learn to brace yourself against the lurching of the train, to touch as few surfaces as possible, and to hold your breath for as long as you can. It is a deeply unpleasant, yet utterly necessary, part of your daily routine. You think about the history of sanitation. For most of human existence, our ancestors lived in conditions that were far filthier than this. The concept of the germ theory is a relatively recent discovery in the grand scheme of things. Yet your modern sensibilities are screaming in protest. You feel a deep, psychological discomfort with the dirt, a longing for a hot shower that becomes an almost physical ache. You start to feel the grime on your own skin, in your hair. Your clothes, which you have been wearing for days, feel stiff and smell of the carriage's unique aroma. A blend of stale sweat, instant noodle steam, and vague industrial odors. You are becoming part of the train's ecosystem, your own body contributing to the overall lack of cleanliness. This ever-present grime has a profound psychological effect. It's a constant reminder of your confinement, of the breakdown of personal boundaries. You are not just sharing a space with these people. You are sharing their dirt, their germs, their very physical presence in the most intimate way. A quirky historical tidbit you recall is that in the 19th century, some wealthy travelers believed that the soot and smoke from steam engines had medicinal properties, a kind of air-cleansing effect. Looking at the gray film on the window, you find this idea hilariously, tragically absurd. There is nothing cleansing about this air, and yet you witness incredible acts of personal fastidiousness in the face of this overwhelming squalor. You see women carefully washing their faces and brushing their teeth with bottled water over the communal sink to avoid the questionable tap water. You see a man meticulously wiping down his small section of the shared table with a damp cloth before laying out his bread and sausage. People take pride in keeping their own small territory, their bunk, as clean as possible. They neatly fold their blankets, they arrange their pillows, they create a small pocket of order in the surrounding chaos. It is a deeply human response. When you cannot control the world around you, You exert absolute control over the small part of it that you can. It's a testament to the human need for dignity, even in the most undignified of circumstances. You find yourself adopting these same habits. You use a corner of your shirt to wipe your mug before filling it at the hot water urn. You carefully shake out your small towel after using it, trying to keep it as dry and clean as possible. These small rituals become incredibly important, a way of maintaining your sanity, of holding onto the person you were before you boarded this train. The battle against grime is a battle you know you will lose. The train is too big, the journey too long, the people too many. But the act of fighting, of resisting, is what matters. It is how you remind yourself that you are not just a piece of cargo being transported across a continent. You are a person, and you will not surrender completely to the dirt. You will maintain your small, defiant patch of cleanliness, a tiny victory against the overwhelming tide of grime that threatens to consume everything. So before this great story continues, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're enjoying our journey together. Your support means the world. The struggle is not just physical, it is a mental game. You have to consciously decide to not think about it too much. You have to accept a new standard of clean. You have to let go of your old world fastidiousness and embrace a more pragmatic, survivalist mindset. The train is teaching you another hard lesson. That cleanliness is a luxury, a privilege of a settled, stable life. Here on the move, different rules apply. And as you lie on your bunk, feeling the grit on the vinyl beneath your sleeping bag, you understand that this journey is stripping you down, layer by layer, until only the essential remains. After a few days, the novelty of the view, if there ever was any, has completely worn off. The world outside your grimy window has settled into a hypnotic, unending sameness. You have entered the taiga, the great boreal forest of Siberia, and it is an ocean of trees. The landscape has become a continuous, flowing wall of green and gray, a visual drone that matches the mechanical drone of the train. At first, you tried to find variation in it. You would spot a clearing, a small river, a cluster of birch trees standing out like white ghosts against the dark pines. But soon, even these small details begin to repeat themselves, becoming part of a predictable pattern. The sheer scale of it is hard to comprehend. You have been traveling for days at a steady, respectable speed, and yet the forest never ends. It stretches from the window to a horizon that seems impossibly distant. This is not like any forest you have ever known. It is not a park or a nature reserve. It is a biome, a planetary feature. A mainstream historical fact that you know is that the Siberian taiga is the largest land-based biome in the world, stretching for thousands of miles across Russia and into Scandinavia. Knowing this fact is one thing. Experiencing it as an endless, scrolling panorama outside your window is another entirely. It makes you feel very, very small. The view becomes a kind of visual anesthetic. You can stare out at it for hours, your mind going blank. The endless trees blur into a single, abstract texture. The rhythmic passing of the telegraph poles becomes a metronome, ticking off the seconds of your life that are being consumed by this journey. There are no towns, no cities, no signs of significant human habitation for vast stretches of time. Occasionally, you will pass a tiny, isolated settlement, a handful of wooden houses clustered around the tracks, a plume of smoke rising from a chimney. You find yourself wondering about the people who live there. What is their life like in this sea of trees? The train is their only link to the outside world, a fleeting, noisy visitor from a different reality. For a moment, you feel a strange connection to them, two different kinds of isolation looking at each other across a pane of dirty glass. The relentless sameness of the landscape starts to affect your sense of time. Without the familiar landmarks of a varied journey, the days begin to merge. Was that small, dilapidated station yesterday or this morning? Are we in the third day or the fourth? The sun rises, the sun sets, but in between the scenery offers no clues. Your world shrinks to the interior of the carriage. The dramas and routines inside become more real, more important than the vast, empty world outside. The endless forest becomes a kind of wallpaper, a backdrop to the more immediate concerns of finding your next meal, navigating the social complexities of the carriage, and trying to find a comfortable position on your hard bunk. This sensory deprivation is a unique kind of challenge. In your normal life, you are bombarded with information, with changing scenery, with a constant stream of new things to see and process. Here, your visual input is reduced to a single, repeating loop. It's like being trapped in a poorly made video game with only one level. A quirky aspect of this that scholars have noted is the taiga hypnosis that can affect long-haul train crews and passengers. The unending, uniform landscape can induce a trance-like state, a dulling of the senses that is both calming and deeply unsettling. You feel it happening to you. Your thoughts become slower, less focused. Your motivation to do anything productive, read a book, write in a journal, drains away. The easiest thing to do is simply to stare. The forest is not silent, even from behind the glass. It has a visual sound, a kind of deep green quiet that seems to absorb the noise of the train. You begin to project your own feelings onto it. Sometimes it looks beautiful, a majestic and untouched wilderness. Other times it looks menacing, a vast, indifferent entity that could swallow you whole without a trace. You understand why so much of Russian folklore is filled with tales of the forest, of spirits and creatures that live in its depths. It is a place that invites imagination, that seems to hide secrets in its endless shadows. You try to combat the hypnotic effect by focusing on the small details again. You notice the way the light changes, the long, golden rays of late afternoon slanting through the trees. You see a bird of prey circling high above the canopy. You watch the reflection of your own carriage gliding over the surface of a still, black lake. These are small, fleeting moments of beauty, but they are crucial. They are anchors that keep your mind from drifting away completely. They remind you that the world outside is real, that it is not just a painting scrolling past your window. This experience gives you a new appreciation for the sheer size of the planet. Maps can show you the scale of Siberia, but they cannot convey the feeling of being immersed in its vastness. You are a tiny speck of consciousness, moving through an immense, unpopulated land. The concerns of your normal life, Deadlines, emails, social obligations feel absurdly distant and insignificant. The train journey is a kind of enforced meditation, a stripping away of the non-essential. The forest is the great teacher, and its lesson is one of humility. It shows you your own smallness in the face of something so ancient and immense. And as you stare out at the unending wall of trees, you feel a strange sense of peace settling over you. You have surrendered to the view, to the motion, to the journey. You are no longer fighting it. You are simply a part of it, a passenger in the ocean of trees. As the days and the trees blur into one, you are confronted with the most formidable challenge of the entire journey: the soul-crushing, deep-seated boredom. The initial excitement is gone. The anxieties have settled into a low-grade hum. The routines of the carriage are now second nature. What is left is a vast, empty expanse of time, a vacuum that you must find a way to fill. This is not the pleasant, restorative boredom of a lazy Sunday afternoon. This is an active, aggressive boredom, a psychological wilderness that threatens to consume you. You had plans for this time. You brought a thick book, a journal, a deck of cards. In the first couple of days, you made an effort. You tried to read, but the constant jostling of the train made the words dance on the page, and the dim, yellow light strained your eyes. You tried to write in your journal, but found you had nothing to say. Day 3, you wrote, saw more trees, ate some noodles, still moving. The epic experience you had expected to document had resolved into a series of mundane, repetitive events. The grand narrative had collapsed. So, you begin to study the masters. You look around the carriage and witness the human genius for combating existential dread. The two soldiers in the compartment across the way have been playing the same card game for what seems like 3 solid days. It's a game you don't recognize, played with a worn, greasy deck of 36 cards. They play with an intense, quiet focus, slapping the cards down on the small table. There is very little talk, just the occasional grunt or muttered curse. They are not playing for fun, it seems. They are playing to kill time, to murder the minutes and hours with a ruthless, methodical efficiency. It is a battle of attrition against the clock, and they are winning. The older women, the babushkas, have their own methods. Many of them are knitting. Their hands are in constant, nimble motion, needles clicking softly, transforming a simple ball of yarn into a sock, a scarf, a piece of a larger, unseen garment. It is a productive, meditative act, a way of creating something useful and beautiful out of the empty air. It is the perfect antidote to the train's destructive, forward momentum. The train consumes time. They create with it. Then there is the art of the conversation. You see strangers who boarded without a word to each other now deep in what appear to be life story swapping sessions. The man with the mustache, who you now know is named Victor, is holding court with a young student. Victor is talking, gesturing with his hands, his face animated. The student is listening, rapt. You can't understand the words, but you can understand the dynamic. A temporary community is being forged through shared stories. This is the oldest form of entertainment, the original way of passing a long, dark night. It requires no equipment, no electricity, just a willingness to speak and to listen. Scholars of oral history would find a goldmine in this carriage, a living library of personal narratives being exchanged in the middle of the Siberian wilderness. And then there is the most popular activity of all, the simple, profound act of staring. People stare out the window. They stare at the ceiling. They stare at each other, though not in a confrontational way. It is a vacant, meditative stare, a kind of mental screensaver. It is an acceptance of the void, a decision to not fight the boredom but to lean into it, to let it wash over you. You realize this is a skill, a form of mental discipline that your overstimulated modern brain has lost. You are used to filling every spare second with a podcast, a social media scroll, a quick check of your email. The idea of just sitting, of just being, is alien and uncomfortable. There is no Wi-Fi here, no signal for most of the journey. You are disconnected, untethered from the digital world. It feels like a phantom limb is missing. You decide to try it. You put away your book, your journal. You lie on your bunk and just stare at the rivets on the ceiling. At first, your mind races. You think about your life back home, you make to-do lists, you worry about things you can't control. But slowly, gradually, under the influence of the train's rhythmic rocking and the hypnotic drone, your thoughts begin to slow down. The frantic inner monologue fades, replaced by a quiet, empty watchfulness. You are not thinking. You are just observing. The dust motes dancing in a stray sunbeam. The pattern of cracks in the vinyl of the bunk across the aisle. The subtle sway of a coat hanging on a hook. You discover a strange peace in this state. The pressure to be entertained, to be productive, to be doing something, is gone. It is a kind of freedom. One quirky fact you remember reading is about the concept of in-betweenness in anthropology, the idea of liminal states where normal rules and expectations are suspended. This journey is one long, continuous liminal state. You are not who you were at home, and you are not yet who you will be at your destination. In this in-between space, the need to perform, even for yourself, dissolves. You also witness the ingenuity of play. A father is entertaining his young daughter with nothing more than his own two hands, creating a shadow puppet show against the wall of the carriage. He makes a bird, a dog, a rabbit. The girl's soft giggles are a bright, happy sound that cuts through the monotonous drone. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated joy, created from nothing. It is a powerful reminder that the best tools for combating boredom are not electronic gadgets, but our own creativity and connection to each other. You finally give in and join a card game. Victor, the man with the mustache, invites you with a gesture. The game is simple, a variant of one you know. You play for hours, you don't talk much. You don't need to. You are part of a shared ritual, a collective effort to hold the great, crushing weight of time at bay. You lose track of the hours. When you finally stop, you feel a sense of accomplishment. You haven't produced anything. You haven't learned anything, but you have survived another day. You have stared into the abyss of boredom and filled it with the simple, repetitive act of playing a card. On the Trans-Siberian Railway, that is a victory of the highest order. As you sink deeper into the journey, you realize the carriage is not just a place. It is an instrument. It is a massive, rolling orchestra of sound, and its constant, inescapable performance has become the soundtrack to your existence. This is not the clean, engineered sound of a modern transit system, designed to be as unobtrusive as possible. This is a raw, mechanical, and deeply human symphony, and you are a captive audience. There is no escape, no volume control. The only option is to listen, to let the sounds wash over you until they become as natural and necessary as breathing. The foundation of this symphony, the rhythm section, is the sound of the wheels on the rails. It is a powerful, hypnotic beat that you feel as much as you hear. It's a classic duple meter, da-dum da-dum, da-dum da-dum, a relentless, percussive pulse that drives everything forward. It is the heartbeat of the train, but it is not a simple, monolithic sound. As you listen more closely, you begin to hear its nuances. The sound changes as the train speeds up, the rhythm quickening to a frantic, rattling pace. It changes as you cross over points in the track, a complex series of metallic clicks and reports that break the monotony. It changes as you go over bridges, the sound becoming hollower, more resonant, as if you are inside a giant drum. Layered over this foundation is the woodwind and brass section, the carriage itself. Every part of the metal car groans, creaks, and whistles in protest at the constant motion. The panels in the ceiling emit a low, mournful moan. The window frames rattle with a high-pitched, insistent chatter. The connecting passage between the cars sighs and hisses like a great mechanical lung. These are the sounds of stress, of metal under immense pressure. It is a constant reminder that you are inside a machine, a complex assembly of parts that are all working, straining, and complaining together. At night, in the dark, these sounds take on a more sinister quality, sounding like whispers and footsteps in the aisle. But the most complex and varied part of the symphony is the human element. The carriage is a concert hall of bodily noises. The primary instrument, of course, a grand chorus of snores. After the lights go out, the performance begins. There is the deep, rumbling bass of the heavy sleeper, a sound that seems to emanate from the very floor of the train. There is the high-pitched, whistling snore of the man with a blocked nose. There is the sputtering, choking snore that makes you sit up in alarm, certain that someone is in their final moments, only for it to resolve back into a steady rhythm. At first, this chorus of snoring is maddening, a wall of noise that makes sleep impossible. But after a few nights, a strange thing happens. It becomes a kind of white noise, a blanket of sound that is, in its own way, comforting. It is the sound of a community at rest. The silence, you realize, would be more terrifying. Then there are the other human sounds. The soft, wet sound of a cough. The sharp, explosive sound of a sneeze, often followed by a chorus of muffled bless yous in a language you don't know. The thin, piercing wail of a baby, a sound that cuts through everything else with an unnerving purity. The soft murmur of conversations, a low, indistinct babble that rises and falls like the tide. And of course, the sounds of eating, the slurping of noodles, the loud crunch of a pickle, the rhythmic chewing of black bread. These are the sounds of life, of bodies functioning, surviving, and enduring in this shared space. A quirky historical fact that you find relatable is that early passenger trains were so loud that conversation was nearly impossible. People would have to shout at each other to be heard over the roar of the steam engine, and the clatter of the unrefined carriage construction. This led to the development of railway literature, books with large print and simple plots that could be enjoyed without much concentration. Looking at your own unread book, you feel a direct connection to those early travelers. The noise of this train, while perhaps less deafening than a steam-powered one, is still a formidable barrier to quiet contemplation. Even the silence has a sound. During the long station stops, when the engine is off and the wheels are still, a different kind of soundscape emerges. You can hear the distant sound of birds, the shouting of vendors on the platform, the gentle hum of the train's ventilation system. But even in this relative quiet, the memory of the train's motion persists. You feel a phantom vibration in your bones, and your ears are filled with a low ringing, the auditory ghost of the relentless da-dum. It's a phenomenon that historians of technology have noted. The way our bodies adapt to and internalize the machines we create. You have been on the train for so long that its noise has become your new baseline for silence. You learn to navigate this world of sound. You learn to sleep through the symphony of snores. You learn to distinguish the normal, healthy creaks of the carriage from the one sharp, unusual sound that might signal a problem. You learn to appreciate the soft giggles of the child with the shadow puppets as a rare, beautiful melody in the otherwise harsh composition. The soundscape of the carriage is a reflection of its society. It is chaotic, intrusive, and often overwhelming, but it is also alive, communal, and strangely beautiful in its complexity. It is the music of 100 lives being lived in close proximity, a symphony of steel and snoring, hurtling through the vast, quiet wilderness. And as you lie on your bunk, you close your eyes and just listen, no longer a frustrated audience member, but a part of the orchestra itself. The sound is in you now. Sometime during the fifth day, a subtle change occurs. It's not something you see on a map, and there's no announcement from the carriage attendant. It is a quiet, almost imperceptible shift that you feel more than you observe. You have crossed the Ural Mountains, the ancient, worn-down range of hills that serves as the conventional geographical border between Europe and Asia. A small, unassuming obelisk flashes past the window, a stone marker declaring Europe on one side and Asia on the other. It's there and gone in an instant, a fleeting acknowledgement of a monumental transition. You are now in Siberia. You are in Asia. The words have a certain weight, a sense of exoticism and distance. But as you look out the window, you are struck by a profound and anticlimactic realization. Nothing has changed. The trees are the same. The sky is the same. The train's relentless rhythm is the same. The imaginary line you just crossed, a line that has defined continents and shaped history for centuries, has left no visible mark on the landscape. The taiga, in its vast, indifferent majesty, does not recognize the petty borders of human geography. Inside the carriage, too, life goes on exactly as it did before. The card game continues. Victor is brewing another cup of strong black tea. The baby in the next compartment is having a small, fussy cry. The quiet act of crossing a continent has had no impact on the self-contained world of the train. This is a humbling lesson. You are so used to the idea of borders as places of dramatic change, places with different languages, different currencies, different cultures on either side. But this border is a whisper, a geological suggestion. The continuity of the landscape and of life on the train is a powerful statement about the artificiality of the lines we draw on maps. And yet, as the hours pass, you begin to notice subtle shifts. They are not in the landscape itself, but in the small signs of human life you glimpse from the window. The architecture of the small station houses seems to change, ever so slightly. The pitch of the roofs might be a little different, the style of the wooden fretwork under the eaves more ornate. You see faces on the station platforms that seem to reflect a different heritage, a blending of European and Asian features that is characteristic of Siberia. These are not dramatic, overnight transformations. They are slow, gradual changes, like a color fading from one shade to another over a long distance. One of the mainstream historical facts about Siberia is its role as a place of exile, a vast, frozen prison for political dissidents, criminals, and revolutionaries for centuries. This history has given the region a dark, forbidding reputation. But the other side of that history, the one you are witnessing in these fleeting glimpses, is one of incredible resilience and cultural mixing. The people who were sent here, or who came here voluntarily as pioneers, did not just disappear. They built lives, they adapted, they mixed with the indigenous peoples of the region, creating a unique and hardy Siberian culture. Historians still debate the extent to which this legacy of exile has shaped the modern Siberian identity. But from your window, you see not a desolate wasteland, but a land that is sparsely, yet tenaciously, inhabited. The crossing of the Urals also marks a psychological turning point in the journey. You are now officially in the deep part of the trip. Moscow and the European world you left behind feel like a distant memory from another lifetime. Vladivostok, your destination, is still an abstract concept, days away in the future. You are suspended in the middle, in the vast, seemingly endless expanse of Asian Russia. This feeling is intensified by the time zones. You have been dutifully moving your watch forward an hour at a time, a ritual that the carriage attendant announces with her usual authority. But the process is disorienting. Your body's internal clock is hopelessly confused. You eat breakfast when it feels like the middle of the night. You try to sleep when the sun is still high in the sky. This temporal dislocation adds to the dreamlike, surreal quality of the journey. You have become untethered not just from place, but from time itself. A quirky fact you read about the construction of the railway was the logistical nightmare of coordinating schedules across so many time zones before they were standardized. Each city had its own local time based on the sun, and the railway had to publish incredibly complex timetables to make any sense of it. Your own small struggle with your watch gives you a new appreciation for the massive effort of synchronization that this railway represents. As you stare out at the unchanging forest, you reflect on the idea of Asia. For you, a product of a Western education, the word has always conjured specific images: rice paddies, bustling cities, ancient temples. This version of Asia, this endless green sea of trees, this world of log cabins and hardy, stoic faces, is completely new to you. It is challenging your preconceptions, broadening your mental map of the world. The train is not just transporting your body across a continent. It is transporting your mind across a landscape of ideas. The feeling inside the carriage has also subtly shifted. The initial awkwardness between passengers is long gone. A quiet, comfortable familiarity has settled in. You have passed the halfway point. You are all veterans now, bound by the shared experience of the journey so far. The crossing of the invisible line into Asia feels like a collective milestone, an achievement you have all earned together. When you catch Victor's eye, he raises his tea glass to you in a small, silent toast. You nod back, understanding the sentiment perfectly. We have made it this far. We are in this together. The border may have been invisible, but the sense of having passed a significant point on your shared path is very real. And in the heart of Siberia, that shared feeling is more important than any line on a map. The longer you are confined within the green metal walls of the carriage, the more the lines between you and the other passengers begin to dissolve. The initial anonymity of the crowd has given way to a strange, intense, and temporary form of intimacy. You are no longer just a collection of strangers sharing a ride. You have become a fleeting, fragile family, a makeshift tribe bound by the shared ordeal of the journey. This is the social alchemy of the third-class carriage. It takes a random assortment of individuals and, through pressure, proximity, and a common purpose, forges them into a temporary community. You now know the people around you not by their names, for the most part, but by their habits and their stories. There is Victor, the mustachioed philosopher of the lower bunk, who dispenses slices of sausage and worldly wisdom in equal measure. There is the young mother, whose name you think might be Anna, and you have learned the specific cadence of her daughter's cries. The sharp, piercing wail that means she's hungry, versus the softer, fussier whimper that means she's tired. There are the two soldiers, who you've discovered are on their way to a posting near the Chinese border. They have taught you their card game, a complex affair of trumps and tricks that you still haven't fully mastered. You've learned that the quiet student is studying engineering in the city of Tomsk, and he is returning home for a family wedding. These relationships are built in the small, in-between moments of the day. They are forged over a shared mug of tea, during a frantic 5-minute platform stop, or in the hushed, late-night conversations that happen when the rest of the carriage is asleep. You have shared food with these people. You have learned to anticipate their movements in the narrow aisle. You have slept, head to foot, with them. It is a level of physical and social proximity that is almost unheard of in modern, atomized life. There are no private rooms to retreat to, no phone screens to hide behind. You are inescapably, relentlessly present with each other. This enforced intimacy creates a unique social dynamic, a blend of cooperation and occasional conflict. You have become allies in the daily struggle against the challenges of the train. When someone needs a hand lifting a heavy bag, a hand appears. When someone runs out of sugar for their tea, a neighbor offers their own. You look out for each other. You wake your neighbor if you see the carriage attendant heading their way for a ticket check. You save a seat by the window for the little girl so she can watch the trees go by. These are small acts of kindness, but They are the threads that weave the social fabric of the carriage together. Of course, not all interactions are harmonious. This is not a utopian commune on wheels. The close quarters can also breed tension and irritation. You have witnessed a quiet but intense territorial dispute over a few inches of luggage space. You have heard a sharp, angry exchange over a window shade being opened at the wrong time. These small conflicts flare up quickly and then, just as quickly, die down. There is an unspoken understanding that open, prolonged hostility is a luxury that no one can afford. You are trapped together, and you have to find a way to coexist. It is a masterclass in conflict resolution and tolerance. A fascinating aspect of this that historians and sociologists have studied is the concept of civil inattention. In a crowded public space, we normally maintain our privacy by pretending not to see or hear the people around us. On the train, this rule is inverted. Here, you are expected to be civilly attentive. You are part of the group, and your engagement, even on a minimal level, is required. To be completely aloof or withdrawn would be seen as strange, even rude. You have found your own place in this fragile family. You are the quiet foreigner, an object of mild curiosity. People are interested in where you are from and where you are going. Communication is a clumsy, beautiful dance of gestures, smiles, and the few words you have in common. You have used a translation app on your phone during a precious few moments of signal to have a broken but meaningful conversation with Victor about his grandchildren. You have played peekaboo with Anna's daughter, earning a brilliant, toothless smile. You have become a character in their journey, just as they have become characters in yours. This temporary community is a powerful buffer against the loneliness and monotony of the trip. You are all in the same boat, or rather, the same carriage. You are all battling the same grime, eating the same bland food, and being hypnotized by the same endless forest. This shared experience is a powerful bond, more powerful than language or culture. A quirky but poignant parallel can be found in the diaries of early pioneers or soldiers, who often wrote about the intense, brotherly bonds formed with their comrades in the face of shared hardship. These bonds were often more intense and meaningful than the relationships they had back home. You know that this family is ephemeral. When you reach Vladivostok, you will all dissipate, melting back into the anonymity of the wider world. You will likely never see any of these people again. There is a certain melancholy to this thought. You are sharing something profound with them, a slice of life that is intense and real, yet has a clearly defined expiration date. But for now, in this moment, hurtling through the Siberian night, they are your people. Victor offers you another cup of tea, and you accept with a smile. The soldiers are shuffling the greasy cards for another round. Anna is softly singing a lullaby to her daughter. You are home, in the most unlikely of places. As the journey wears on, a new, unspoken anxiety begins to creep into your thoughts, a fear that has been lurking in the background since you first stepped onto the train. The prospect of getting sick. In your normal life, falling ill is an inconvenience. It means a trip to the pharmacy, a day or two off work, the comfort of your own bed. Here, in this sealed, moving world, it is a terrifying proposition. The carriage, which has become a kind of temporary home, suddenly feels like a perfect incubator, a petri dish on wheels. You start to notice every cough, every sneeze, with a heightened sense of alarm. The young man 2 compartments down has developed a nasty, hacking cough that echoes through the car day and night. Each time you hear it, you feel a phantom tickle in your own throat. You watch him, huddled in his bunk, looking pale and miserable, and you feel a mixture of pity and a primal urge to keep your distance. The air in the carriage, already thick and stale, now seems laden with invisible threats. You are breathing what 100 other people are breathing, a shared atmosphere of germs and viruses. There is no doctor on this train. There is no medical bay, no first aid kit beyond what the carriage attendant might have in her personal supplies. If you were to become seriously ill, your options would be grimly limited. You would either have to suffer through it until you reached a major city with a hospital, which could be a day or more away, or you would have to get off at the next small, anonymous station and throw yourself on the mercy of whatever local clinic might exist there. The thought of being sick, alone, and unable to communicate in a foreign language in a remote Siberian town is a scenario straight out of a nightmare. This fear makes you hyper-aware of your own body. Every small ache, every twinge, every moment of fatigue is scrutinized. Is this just the normal wear and tear of the journey, or is it the first sign of something worse? You find yourself obsessively drinking the hot water from the urn, clinging to the folk wisdom that hot liquids can ward off illness. You guard your small bottle of hand sanitizer, a last-minute purchase you are now profoundly grateful for, like a precious elixir. You see how illness is managed within the community of the carriage. When the young man's cough gets worse, Anna, the young mother, approaches him. She doesn't have medicine, but she has a small jar of what looks like honey and a bag of dried herbs. She speaks to him in a low, soothing voice and prepares a hot, steaming drink for him in his mug. He accepts it with a weak, grateful nod. This is health care on the Trans-Siberian, a combination of folk remedies, communal care, and a quiet, stoic endurance. It's a throwback to a time before modern medicine, when the community was the first and last line of defense against sickness. Historians who study the history of medicine often talk about the role of railways in spreading epidemics. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, these new arteries of travel allowed diseases like cholera and influenza to move across continents with terrifying speed. A single infected passenger could seed an outbreak over thousands of miles. Lying in your bunk, you feel like a living illustration of this historical principle. The train is an incredibly efficient vector, a closed system perfectly designed for transmission. You also contemplate the more mundane, but equally miserable, ailments. What if you were to get food poisoning from one of the mysterious platform pastries? The single, overused toilet at the end of the car would become a personal chamber of horrors. You find yourself becoming more cautious in your food choices, sticking to the safe, bland diet of instant noodles and tea. The allure of the platform food is now tinged with a new element of risk. A quirky and rather grim fact about the railway is the protocol for what happens if a passenger dies en route. It's not something the railway likes to advertise, but procedures are in place. The body would be discreetly moved to a service compartment and taken off the train at the next major stop. The thought is morbid, but it underscores the stark realities of this journey. Life and death happen here, just as they do anywhere else, but in a compressed, accelerated, and public fashion. Despite the fear, you also witness the profound resilience of the human body. The vast majority of people on the train remain healthy, despite the challenging conditions. Their immune systems, accustomed to this environment, are robust. You, with your sanitized Western immune system, feel like the weak link, but day after day you remain healthy. Your body, it seems, is adapting. It is learning to cope with the dirt, the strange food, and the recycled air. You are tougher than you thought. The sick young man, after a day of Anna's herbal concoctions and a lot of sleep, begins to look a little better. His cough becomes less frequent, and a little color returns to his cheeks. The collective, unspoken anxiety in the carriage begins to recede. The crisis has passed. This small drama, which played out over a couple of days, is a microcosm of life itself. The constant presence of vulnerability, the fear of mortality, the power of simple human kindness, and the incredible, persistent will to get better. You take a deep breath of the stale carriage air, and for the first time, it doesn't feel quite so threatening. It feels like the air of a place where you have been tested and, so far, have survived. The fear of sickness will not disappear entirely, but it has been put back in its place. It is just another challenge, another hardship to be endured and overcome. And as the train continues its endless journey eastward, you feel a new sense of quiet confidence, a faith in the strength of your own body and in the fragile, powerful community that surrounds you. On the morning of the sixth day, you wake up to a different kind of weariness. It's not the acute, jarring exhaustion of the first few nights. It is a deep, profound fatigue that has settled into your bones, a weariness of the soul. The end of the journey is now tantalizingly close, just over a day away, but it doesn't bring the giddy anticipation you expected. Instead, the final stretch feels like the hardest part of a marathon, the point where your body and spirit are at their lowest ebb, and the finish line seems to mock you from a distance. The novelty of everything has long since evaporated. The routines that once felt new and challenging are now just monotonous chores. Making your tea, climbing into your bunk, navigating the crowded aisle. It all happens on autopilot, performed with a sigh of resignation. The conversations have dwindled. The card games are less frequent. A kind of collective lethargy has descended upon the carriage. Everyone is tired. You can see it in their faces, in the slow, heavy way they move. The initial energy of departure has been ground down by thousands of kilometers of steel on steel. You look at your own reflection in the dark window. The person staring back is a stranger, a gaunt, weary-eyed ghost. Your face is pale, your hair is greasy, and your clothes are rumpled and carry the permanent aroma of the train. You feel 1,000,000 years old. The journey has physically and mentally worn you down, stripping away the superficial layers of your identity and leaving behind this raw, tired core. You feel a deep, aching longing for the simplest of comforts. A hot shower, a clean set of clothes, a bed that doesn't move. These things, which you once took for granted, have become the ultimate symbols of luxury. the stuff of fantasy. The landscape outside, which had been a hypnotic wallpaper of trees, now feels like a prison. The endless forest no longer seems majestic, it seems oppressive. You are tired of trees. You crave a different view. A city skyline, an open field, anything to break the monotony. But the taiga is relentless, offering no relief. The train continues to plunge deeper into it, and you feel a sense of being swallowed, of your own will being eroded by the sheer, green vastness of it all. Even the platform stops have lost their charm. The thought of putting on your shoes, navigating the crowded exit, and standing on a cold, windy platform for 10 minutes feels like a colossal effort. On one of the last stops, you don't even bother to get off. You just watch from the window as others go through the motions, buying their pastries and stretching their legs. You don't have the energy for it anymore. The brief, frantic freedom they offer is no longer worth the effort it requires. The carriage, for all its flaws, has become your shell, and you are reluctant to leave it. This deep weariness is a well-documented phenomenon of long-haul travel, especially in such basic conditions. It's a state that explorers and soldiers have described for centuries, a point where the initial adrenaline and sense of purpose have been exhausted. But the end is not yet immediate enough to provide a new source of energy. It is a psychological trough, a valley of despair that must be crossed before the final ascent. A quirky historical parallel might be found in the diaries of sailors on long sea voyages, who often wrote of a profound, calm water madness that would set in during windless periods, a state of deep melancholy and lethargy brought on by the lack of progress and the endless, empty horizon. You are in the taiga's equivalent of the doldrums. The social fabric of the carriage, once so vibrant, has also frayed with fatigue. People are more withdrawn, retreating into themselves. The temporary family is beginning to remember that they are, in fact, strangers. The impending end of the journey hangs in the air, and with it, the knowledge that this shared world is about to be dissolved. There is a sadness to it, a sense of an ending before the actual arrival. You find yourself feeling a preemptive nostalgia for the very experience you are so desperate to escape. You look at Victor, dozing in his bunk, and feel a pang of loss for the conversations you will no longer have. You try to read your book again, but the words still swim before your eyes. You try to listen to the tinny music from someone's radio, but it just feels like noise. Your senses are dull. Your mind is numb. The only thing that feels real is the motion of the train, the constant, swaying rhythm that has been your entire world for a week. It has become a part of you, and you wonder what it will feel like when it stops. Will you be able to stand on solid ground without feeling a phantom sway? Will you be able to sleep in a silent room without the comforting roar of the wheels? In this state of profound exhaustion, you find a strange clarity. All the small annoyances, the discomforts, the frustrations of the journey, they no longer matter. They have been burned away by a deeper, more elemental fatigue. You have been stripped down to the bare essentials of existence: eating, sleeping, moving. It is a profoundly humbling experience. You are not a tourist on an adventure. You are a body being transported through space, and that body is tired. As dusk falls on the sixth day, you climb into your bunk for what you hope will be the last full night on the train. You don't bother with your book or your journal. You just lie there, feeling the train sway beneath you. You are no longer fighting the journey. You have surrendered to it completely. You close your eyes, not with the hope of a good night's sleep, but with the quiet, weary acceptance of a traveler who is almost home. The dawn, when it comes, will be the beginning of the end. And for that, you are profoundly, deeply grateful. The final morning arrives not with a bang, but with a subtle shift in the carriage's atmosphere. The air is thick with a new energy, a nervous, restless anticipation that has replaced the deep weariness of the day before. The end is no longer an abstract concept. It is a tangible reality just a few hours away. People are awake earlier than usual and their movements are brisk, purposeful. The final act has begun. The packing is the first ritual. You watch as your fellow passengers begin the process of dismantling the small, temporary homes they have built for themselves. Blankets are folded, mugs are washed and stowed away, and the last of the food supplies are either eaten or packed deep into bags. The soldiers carefully put away their greasy deck of cards. Anna dresses her daughter in a clean outfit that she seems to have saved for this very occasion. Victor meticulously packs his sausage and bread, his movements as deliberate as ever. The process is a reversal of the one you witnessed a week ago in Moscow. Then, it was an act of settling in. Now, it is an act of erasure, of preparing to leave this world behind. You begin your own packing. You wrestle your heavy bag down from the high shelf for the last time. It feels both lighter, having been emptied of most of your food, and impossibly heavy with the psychic weight of the journey. You stuff your dirty clothes, your unread book, and your worn-out toiletries into it. As you pack, you are taking inventory of the last week of your life. Every object seems to hold a memory. The cheap plastic mug that brought you so much comfort, the crumpled map you stopped looking at days ago, the small, smooth stone you picked up from a platform somewhere in the middle of Siberia. The carriage attendant comes through, collecting the rolled-up mattresses and the bundles of used linen. Her expression is the same as it has been all week, stern, impassive. But there is a finality to her actions. She is resetting the stage for the next group of travelers who will board in Vladivostok, ready to begin the long journey west. For her, this is not an end, but simply a turning point in an endless cycle. It is a sobering reminder that while this has been a monumental, life-changing journey for you, for the train and its crew, it is just another Tuesday. As the train gets closer to Vladivostok, the landscape outside finally begins to change. The dense, unbroken forest starts to thin, giving way to rolling hills and small farms. You see more roads, more cars, more signs of a world that is not entirely dependent on the railway. And then, you see it for the first time, a glimpse of the ocean, a brilliant, startling flash of blue on the horizon. After a week of being surrounded by the green and brown of the taiga, the sight of the sea is a shock to the system. It feels like waking from a long, strange dream. The train slows as it enters the outskirts of the city. The familiar, hypnotic rhythm of the wheels is replaced by a slow, clattering crawl as it navigates the complex web of tracks in the rail yard. You pass rows of freight containers, industrial warehouses, and apartment blocks. It is the messy, unglamorous edge of civilization. But it is civilization nonetheless, and it is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. The announcement comes over the crackling intercom, first in a language you don't understand, then with a simple, heavily accented English phrase. Final destination, Vladivostok. A ripple of movement goes through the carriage. People stand up, pull on their coats, and shoulder their bags. The aisle becomes a crowded, impassable logjam of bodies and luggage. The mood is one of strained, impatient excitement. And then, with one last, gentle sigh of its air brakes, the train stops. For a moment, there is a profound, deafening silence. The constant motion, the relentless noise, the vibration that has been your entire reality for 7 days, it is all gone. The stillness is the most jarring sensation of all. It feels wrong, unnatural. You feel a wave of disorientation, a kind of vertigo, as your body struggles to recalibrate to a stationary world. You place a hand on the wall to steady yourself. The doors are opened, and a rush of cool, salty sea air floods the carriage, sweeping away the stale, recycled atmosphere of the journey. It is the smell of arrival, the smell of freedom. You join the slow-moving queue shuffling towards the exit. You exchange final nods and quiet goodbyes with your fellow passengers. You shake Victor's hand. You wave to Anna and her daughter. There are no grand, emotional farewells. You are once again a collection of strangers, your brief, intense connection already starting to fade. You step down the steep metal steps and onto the solid, unmoving concrete of the platform. You take a few tentative steps, like a sailor finding his land legs after a long voyage. The ground feels impossibly solid beneath your feet. You look up at the grand, old station building, a mirror image of the one you left in Moscow a lifetime ago. You have done it. You have crossed a continent. You have survived. You stand there for a moment, your heavy bag on your shoulder, feeling the cool breeze on your face and listening to the sounds of the city. A profound, overwhelming sense of relief and accomplishment washes over you. The journey is over. The shock of stillness has arrived. The world you left behind a week ago feels like a distant planet. You have been ground down, stripped bare, and remade by the rhythm of the rails. The journey was not the romantic adventure you might have imagined, but something far more raw, more challenging, and ultimately, more meaningful. As the last of your fellow passengers disappears into the bustling city, you are left alone on the platform with the great, green, silent train. It seems to be resting, gathering its strength for the long journey back. You give it a final, respectful nod, a silent thank you for getting you here, and then you turn and walk away into the shocking, beautiful stillness of solid ground. And so you stand there on the edge of the Pacific, the ghost of the train's rhythm still humming in your bones. The endless noise has been replaced by the cry of gulls and the distant sound of a ship's horn. The journey was a lesson in endurance, a meditation on the vastness of the land and the strange, fleeting intimacy of shared hardship. You learned that comfort is a privilege, that cleanliness is a luxury, and that boredom is a wilderness to be navigated with creativity and grace. The people of the carriage, your fragile family, showed you that human resilience is not about grand gestures, but about the small daily acts of kindness and adaptation. Sharing a slice of sausage, knitting a sock, singing a lullaby in the dark. As you step into the city, you carry their stories with you, a quiet testament to the communities we build in the most unlikely of places. Think of them and of your own quiet strength as you let the memory of the journey fade. Let go of the grime and the noise and hold onto the stillness. The rocking has stopped, my friend. The ground is firm beneath your feet. You are safe. You are still. It is time to rest.